Get a head start on your next trophy buck. Order stand placement advanced techniques today at Closing the Distance.
Welcome to this week's Closing the Distance. Hi, I'm Matt Moore. I'm glad you're with us. Today's show is Lessons Learned. We're going to check in with Steve Hurd and Freddy Lovell. They're going to take us to Central Texas. Both of these guys kill deer, but I guarantee you things just don't go as planned. At the end of the show, be sure to check in with Brother Mark. He's going to remind us, sometimes the harder that we try in life, sometimes those things might elude us. Let's get started.
Closing the Distance is brought to you by Ozonics. Undetectable, undeniable. Hunter Safety System, dedicated to saving hunters' lives. Executioner Broadheads, born to kill. Treason, don't just blend, become. And by Citadel, revolutionary shoot-down shape. Coming up, we'll follow Steve Hurd to Central Texas, and we'll learn a great tip on having patience while bow hunting. Later on, Freddy Lovell has a minor problem. Lessons learned. Closing the Distance will be right back. Closing the Distance is made possible by Matthews Solo Cam. Catch us if you can. Tree limb quivers. There's only one tree limb quiver. Sword sights. Sharp solutions in aiming. Elusive Wildlife Technologies. Taking the elusive out of wildlife. The Stage Deer Attractant. Finally, a synthetic scent that works. And by the amazing Luminoc. Can your aeronaut do this?
Welcome back. This first hunt, where we're pro staffer Steve Hurd, Central Texas. Let's check in with Steve.
All right, on this particular ranch that we're on out in Central Texas is known for quality deer. We have really killed some giant bucks on this particular ranch. And this particular buck that I was after was not one of them. This was a junk deer. I had been seeing this deer, probably started seeing him in early September, and I knew he was probably an older deer. He was a 7-point. And it's the kind of deer that when you find him on your trail cams, you really get kind of excited because okay, well, this is going to be a bonus buck. This is probably an older deer that maybe it came across from another fence line or another ranch or across the road or something like that. So I was really excited about trying to get on this particular deer. And I knew I was going to get him early. I knew I was going to probably shoot that deer the first weekend in October. Well, that came and went. And I didn't see my deer. Next time I was out there, probably a month later, that came and went. I still didn't see my deer. We got all the way into late December on this deer before I finally got an opportunity on him. He showed up and just out of nowhere came through a thicket that was out in front of the setup that we were hunting, and he just kind of hung up, and he just would not turn and give me the shot that I needed. But I had hunted him for so long that the truth is I just got impatient. I wanted him so bad that I at one point I believe I drew and had to let down on him because he didn't turn like I needed him to. So finally I took a shot on this deer that I was comfortable with the shot. It's a kill shot, but it's not going to leave any blood on the ground. And out in this particular area of Texas, if you don't get blood on the ground, you're going to have problems. And problems is what we had. We've given that deer about 20 minutes. We're down now. I just want to show you our setup really quick. Where we're hunting right now, I know you can see all of these oaks, low oaks behind me, and about 50 yards over to my right, not very far, is a creek line, and that's what we're doing. We're hunting this creek line, and right now we are sitting on the very southern edge of all of these oaks and all of that, and that creek line for our property. This setup, and the reason I wanted to talk about it a little bit, is because there's just virtually no way to hunt this and the wind be right for you. Normally the wind is always out of the south and it's blowing back towards where all of the deer normally come from. This morning, Shane Steele's running camera for me. He told me this morning, he goes, hey, we call it the rocket setup. Let's go to the rocket. The wind's going to be wrong. It's going to be out of the north. Not usually out of the north, but it's going to be a very slight wind out of the north this morning. It's exactly what it was. There's almost no wind whatsoever. But if you can see my setup right behind me, what we did was we pushed a couple of tripods back up into that oak tree right there, cut out a little shooting lane here and there. We mounted our ozonics up there, and folks, I'm telling you right now, if you've got a piece of dirt, if you've got a spot, and you're thinking to yourself, I can't really set up there because of the wind, get yourself an ozonics, because we get away with absolute murder. There's just no way to hunt this without an ozonics. If you don't have one, it's not a gimmick. If you think it's a gimmick, let me tell you now, it's not a gimmick. The thing works, and you really just, nowadays, you just can't hunt without it. And I guess what I'm leading to with all of this, folks, there's no way to hunt where I'm hunting right now without ozonics, because the wind is just, there's just no way to sit in here like this. It's always wrong, and the hogs and the deer always come from the wrong direction. So I don't know that we'd ever be able to sit up there without it. Let's go find our deer, man. I'm excited. Man, we gave it 100%. We looked for that deer all afternoon, and even skipped that evening hunt completely. I was just sick about it. And if you've ever lost a deer, you know exactly how I felt. The next morning, I had to get up and go home. I drove halfway home. I'm walking through the door at Buc-ee's, and my phone rings. And one of the guys that's on the lease with us out there was staying an extra day. He found my deer.
He didn't run very far from the setup where Steve shot him. We just overlooked him, I guess, and just questioned the shot. So just missed him yesterday, but found him today, so that's a good thing.
So the lesson learned with this hunt, I hit the deer exactly where I was aiming. I made the shot that I was trying to make. The problem is the patience factor. I didn't need to take that shot. That deer was comfortable. He'd been there for a long time. And looking back on it, there's just no doubt whatsoever, if I'd have been a little bit more patient, if I would have given it 10 or 15 more minutes, the deer was probably going to take a step or two and get broadside and give me the shot that I should take, not the shot that I forced myself into believing I needed to take. So yeah, the lesson with this particular hunt is patience. I mean, you got to be able to, sometimes you have to let the deer walk. You have to let him walk out of there and not even take a shot on a deer, and just hope and pray that you'll get another opportunity.
After the break, scouting tips to close the distance. Later on, Freddy Lovell shares his lessons learned. We'll be right back. Don't go on your next hunt without knowing why you might miss. Get your free copy of Shot Placement 101 today. Details at closingthedistance.com. Closing the Distance is brought to you by Ozonics, undetectable, undeniable. Hunter Safety System, dedicated to saving hunters' lives. Executioner Broadheads, born to kill. Treason, don't just blend, become. And by Citadel, revolutionary shoot-down shape.
Welcome back to Closing the Distance. Today's show is Lessons Learned. Let's check in with Pro Staffer Freddy Lovell. Freddy's going to show us how he made this setup, which let him shoot a great deer.
In this particular spot, it really, the Citadel just fit so well. This is open country, and we got a pretty good draw here that does have a lot of cedar cover, but there's a wheat field plumb across the county road a good mile, maybe 2 miles, out to the west. And then there's a big ranch to the east that has very little hunting pressure on it. And those deer, this is the closest wheat field for miles. And it's just a natural travel corridor through here. Most people would look at this piece of property, if you brought them out here in the middle of the day and wanted to lease the hunting, they'd probably tell you it was crazy. It just really doesn't look like a property that holds deer. But they do. Early morning, they're gonna come from the west, going back to bed. Evening, they're gonna come from the east and go to the field. Just a good setup. And if you really, we're probably it's a small property. We're probably 200 yards through the brush to the back fence. And there is some trails and holes in the fence where those deer come through. Most hunters that would be the first thing you would find. You would walk the fence and you would find that and would want to put a stand right there. But there's so many deer that move through here that come from other areas. So we set the citadel kind of back on the edge of the travel corridor instead of right in the middle. You know, if we'd have got right in the middle, and we always tried to hunt it with an east, northeast, southeast wind, 50% of the deer would be on your, you would spook deer going in, coming out. But hunting the edge like this, and we never used a feeder. We would hand scatter a little corn, some come here deer, just enough to kind of, more of an attractant to kind of alter their route just a little bit. And we didn't really want them hanging out here. There's too many deer here. You can't get in and out of the stand. They would eat a little while and then they would go on to the wheat. So it really is a perfect setup. The citadel, I mean, it was just within a day or two, the deer was used to the citadel. It just blended in well with the cedars, and it was just a great setup.
When closing the distance returns, Freddy Lovell has a dead deer walk-in, but mistakes are made. More lessons learned when we return. Closing the Distance is made possible by Matthews Solo Cam. Catch us if you can. Tree limb quivers. There's only one tree limb quiver. Sword sights. Sharp solutions in aiming. Elusive Wildlife Technologies. Taking the elusive out of wildlife. The Stage Deer Attractant. Finally, a synthetic scent that works. And by the amazing Luminoc. Can your aeronaut do this?
We're here in my home county. It's the county I grew up in and hunted this particular property off and on a lot of times over the years. And when I first started hunting here, the cedars were like knee high. Now we've got a few that's 15 foot, 12 foot tall, but there's still no really big hardwoods for stands. And it's pretty open country. Pop-ups really don't do good here. The wind blows hard. So it was a perfect match for a citadel. And our first year hunting with citadel, me and Jeff come out and set this citadel up, and we kind of stood it up behind the cedar trees and didn't really cut anything till after we got the stand up, cut our little shooting windows. And you can't say enough about the citadel. There's so many great features about it. I love setting up out in the weather on a tree, on a lock-on stand or something, but it's awful nice once in a while to be in the comfort of an enclosed, warm, dry stand. And the position of the windows hides movement so well, and there's so many applications. My girlfriend, she loved coming and sitting in this stand with me. Or if you have kids, what a great stand. I mean, you can move, you can whisper, they're quiet, they control scent. And this particular setup has been real good, for me and Jeff this year. We saw a ton of deer. They got used to it really quick. And I took a really good buck out of this stand early in the season. It was first part of November. And I can't help but revert back to a conversation I had with Matt 8 years ago. We were on the way to Kansas, and I remember asking Matt, has anybody ever forgot to hit record in the moment of truth? And Matt calmly answered, oh yeah, and it'll happen to you if you do this long enough. So I never really thought any more about it, but 8 years later, it happened. So one afternoon, me and Jeff were sitting here, and another great feature of the citadel is there's room. We would usually both bring our bows, you know, and we'd bring the camera. We never knew who was going to shoot, you know. I might see something I don't want to shoot that he might want to shoot. So, but that particular evening, it's early November, and the mature bucks were starting to move, and we had a really good 8-point come in. It was late in the evening, light was pretty darn low, and he came in from our left, and I'm sitting on the right, and I'm filming, and I filmed this buck come in, but Jeff really can't see him very good, and I'm telling Jeff, you need to hurry up and get a shot off with this deer. We're losing light quick. Finally, with the cedar trees that we had kind of blocking his window, he said, man, I can't shoot. He said, can you shoot? And I said, yeah, I've got a clear shot. So somewhere in the process of me passing the camera to Jeff and me getting my bow ready and turning around and light conditions fading fast, you know, I'm asking Jeff, do you got him? Do you got him? And finally, the deer gives me a quarter and away shot, and he says he's got him, gave me the green light. And though there's no proof, I made a good shot right behind the shoulder, exited on the other shoulder. I found my hair real bloody. Executioner broadhead. Use it again. We're gonna look a little further here. He can't be far. Here we go, baby. Let me make sure he's down, but man, he went a lot further than I thought. Yeah, baby. Heck yeah. Man, he's pretty 8-point. Come on up, man. Know which side you'd be better on. Woo, he smells like a rotten buck. Man, that's a unique rack. Not much for main beam, not much for score, but I love the way his main beams come around together. I ain't never shot one like that. Chocolate horns. Citadel blinds. Man, I caught him at a pretty good angle, and I don't think my arrow exited. Why he didn't. He'd bleed real hard for a while, and then it'd get kind of spotty, but I think it was just because we didn't have an exit wound. Heck yeah. I'll take him. He's a pretty deer. There's some bigger ones out here. Jeff, you have to sit and wait now. Man, but I'll tell you, he's pretty. I like the way he does right here. I like that. We got the recovery on the deer, everything on film, but as soon as Jeff filmed the reaction, he set the camera down, and I look down and I see the red record light on. And I tell Jeff, I say, hey, you forgot to turn the camera off. But in reality, he had turned it on when he thought he was turning it off. So long story short, we got this buck on the ground, beautiful deer, mature 8-point, a good way to start the season off.
Every hunter knows the frustration of trying to do everything that you can to get on that buck of a lifetime, or just get on a good deer, or a deer in general, and doing everything you can and it just never coming together. And I had one of those situations that happened actually in the 2015 season last year in Indiana. I was up there for 7 days with a couple of my friends. We always go to these same 2 farms, and we hunted hard. I mean, hunted hard for 7 days. And no matter what I did, I couldn't make it happen. I had 3 encounters with really, really great deer. I mean, within 30 yards, and just the angle wasn't right, something didn't happen right, and I was so completely frustrated by the end of the week. It was just overwhelming. So finally on the last day, I get up and just go to the woods, and I had just kind of resigned that, you know what, I'm probably not going to get it done this time this year. And I just decided I wasn't going to let it ruin my hunt. I was just going to have a good time. I was going to enjoy the outdoors. I was going to thank God for this beautiful opportunity to hunt the Midwest. And wouldn't you know it, isn't it amazing? On the last day of the last hunt at 8:45 in the morning, this happened right here. This buck came, and I was able to take a great deer on my last day of the hunt. And here's what it got me to thinking about. It got me to thinking about how that sometimes in life we try so hard to make things happen. We try to, get the best job we can. We try to make this happen. We try to buy this or go here. We think that this is going to make us happy. And sometimes the harder that we try, the more things elude us. There really is something to this phrase, let go and let God. Let go and let God. Sometimes what we really need to do is just be anxious for nothing, as the scripture says in the book of Philippians, and relax and just give it all to God and say, Lord, I'm going to do everything that I can. I'm going to work as hard as I can, but ultimately, I am going to trust in you. I'm going to put my faith in you to do for me and my family what we can't do for ourselves. And when you put your faith in God, what you find is that God will often do in a moment what sometimes we could not do in a lifetime. If you'd like to know more about a personal relationship with God through His Son, Jesus Christ, just go to closingthedistance.com and click on the Moment of Truth tab.
Want more from Closing the Distance? Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram.